next guest says that the only way to make sure Iran doesn't get a nuclear bomb is to bomb them. Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN and Fox News contributor John Bolton joins me now. Good evening, Ambassador. You want to bomb them? Really?
Well, I'd rather we weren't in this position, but we have followed policies for close to 30 years now that have left us with no other option. The path ahead has only two outcomes. Outcome number one, far and away the most likely, Iran gets nuclear weapons, whether they sign this deal in Geneva now or not. Outcome number two, somebody, and that means only the United States or Israel, takes preemptive military action to break their control over the nuclear fuel cycle at key points. It's not going to happen under the Obama administration, so the spotlight's on Israel. But make no mistake, if somebody doesn't act to preempt the Iranian progress toward nuclear weapons, they will have them at a time of their choosing.
And what about the fact that we're in such a rush to get this thing done? It's almost as though we're worried about the imposition of the economic sanctions against Iran. What do we benefit from this? How do we benefit?
Well, I think the Obama administration is very fearful of a reaction in Congress, including perhaps even by a majority of Democrats who realize just how bad this deal is. You know, the German foreign minister who arrived in Switzerland today for these last days of negotiations made an important point. He said, we've been at this for 12 years. And I remember that because I was in the Bush administration when these European negotiations began. 12 years of effort to pressure and persuade Iran to give up its nuclear weapons program, and it hasn't happened. That ought to tell us something. You know, the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. 12 years of negotiation, and we still don't have a deal with them.
And during those 12 years, or at least in the beginning of them, they didn't tell us about that Fordo facility, which is, you know, 300 feet down, and that's fortified by mountains and bunkers.
Or many other facilities. They have concealed evidence from the International Atomic Energy Agency for decades. They have moved hundreds, thousands of cubic yards of dirt to avoid traces of radioactivity being discovered from earlier activities. They've demolished buildings. They've ruled whole areas off limits to the IAEA. And there's no evidence right now that we truly know the full scope of Iran's nuclear weapons program, or that the negotiations in Geneva have come up with anything even approximating an acceptable verification system.
And what about this whole idea that they said they will absolutely not accept these snap inspections? And, you know, while the Ayatollah chants death to America, are we stupid?
Well, I think the president's operating from a very misguided ideological perspective. He thinks, as he has in so many other areas around the world, that it's American presence, American strength that's caused this problem of the Iranian nuclear weapons program. And he truly believes if he can just persuade the Ayatollahs that America's not a threat to them, they will say, well, we don't need these nuclear weapons anyway. Let's give them up and rejoin the community of nations. I mean, really, it's like looking at the world through the wrong end of a telescope, but that's Barack Obama's view.
And it seems, as you look at the region, Ambassador, you know, you've got Egypt and Jordan who are joining together in military action, and then you also have Saudi Arabia engaging in military action, and none of them even telling us about it or asking us to join them. Is that a signal that they don't trust us either?
Well, I think it's a reflection that they're going to act in their own national interest, and that they can't count on the United States to do what's necessary. Let's be clear here. The Arab states, the oil-producing monarchies on the Arabian Peninsula, Jordan, Egypt, and most others don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons any more than Israel does, which is why, although they won't admit it publicly, they would welcome an Israeli preemptive strike, just as they welcomed quietly and in private an Israeli preemptive strike against a nuclear reactor being built in Syria in 2007, being built, of all people, by North Koreans. So they understand the Iranian threat. They understand the nuclear threat. They understand the terrorism threat. They understand this is a deep-seated, long-standing conflict. They had hoped the United States would look out for its own interest in the region, but failing that, they'll look out for their own.
All right, Ambassador John Bolton, thanks so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you, John. Judge.
All right, and with me now, former senior advisor to Presidents Obama, Clinton, George H.W. Bush, Fox News foreign affairs analyst, Ambassador Dennis Ross.